Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another one of my Dota 2 hero guides. Today we're going to be taking a look at Kunkka, specifically mid Kunkka, not support Kunkka, because support Kunkka hasn't really been a thing recently, so if it does change or something drastic happens, then I may make a second guide, but regardless, it kind of stays the same because of his abilities. So his abilities allow him to burst people full to zero and stun people and catch people out, especially once he hits 6. So as a mid or core, you want to look to get 6 as soon as possible, and then use your ult on cooldown to get pickoffs. And that's kind of the basis of Kunkka. And otherwise, in team fights later on, or in general, he can do a lot of damage, but also he can cause a lot of chaos in fights and really help out his team with team fighting. But then at the same time, he can do a significant amount of right-click damage if you build him correctly. And so Kunkka is one of these heroes where he's sort of a hybrid hero where you can go full utility, full team fight, not really do too much damage, but cause a lot of chaos. But then on the other side, you can go the meme builds that are like, Daedalus and Rapier and those kinds of things where you just like one-shot supports that are squishy. Now, the damage build is usually more on the meme kind of like not a serious build side, but it's still probably viable at times. And then you can also do a middle of the road. You can do some damage, but also cause a lot of chaos in team fights because your innate abilities will just always be there to cause chaos and do damage, but then you can also build slightly into doing more right-click damage so that the team can't ignore you. So he is a hero that is a little more complicated in the sense that you need to know what items to build on him and what direction you should go based on your own team composition and the enemy team composition. Also is like your matchup in mid and those kinds of things. Does the enemy team have a lot of squishy heroes or tanky heroes? A lot of elusive heroes or not? All those different things will factor into how you play Kunkka, but regardless, you need to know some basic things on Kunkka in order to play him effectively, and that is how do his abilities work and how to chain his abilities together. So I'm going to give you some hints or some general guides about how to play him, but I also want to make sure that regardless if you're choosing to play this hero, you know how to consistently and effectively perform combos on the hero, because I think that's the most important thing. Regardless of whether you get to a higher level and you figure out, okay, I want to be team fighting this game, okay, I want to be right-clicking this game, those kinds of things. Whatever you need to decide is more of a higher level decision, but regardless, you need to know how to perform the combos no matter what you do when you play this hero. So that's kind of the most important thing, and that's what we'll look at when we look at his abilities. So without further ado, let's look at his abilities. So now that we understand what Kunkka does in general, we can take a look at his abilities and how they enable him to cause a lot of chaos in team fights, pick people off, and do some right-click damage, and just be that kind of middle-of-the-road hybrid hero like I talked about. So first, we're going to take a look at a pretty simple ability here. It's Torrent, and that's his Q, and you just click it, and you see there's a little AoE that shows up, and you press it on the ground, and after a short delay, the heroes within that AoE will go up into the air, they'll be stunned for a short period of time, and take some damage, as well as have some movement slow or be slowed after the duration of the Torrent stun. So it's pretty simple, just, again, a reminder that there is a slight delay while you cast it. Now, you can see that area that you cast it on, and so can your allies, but the enemy can't. What they can see is that, you're putting your arm in the air or whatever to cast it, so they may know, okay, he did cast Torrent, but I don't really know where he did. Maybe I'll juke or those kinds of things. So it's just something to consider, that they can see that you're casting it, but they actually don't know where you are casting it. Now next, we'll take a look at Tidebringer here, and this ability is what allows him to do a lot of physical damage. So I set this up to show you how this works. And what it does is, in an AoE, it cleaves or does physical cleave damage to the enemies and the hero, or the heroes and the creeps or whatever, in this V shape from the enemy or creep that he's hitting. And so we'll just demonstrate this here. I kind of did it also when I auto-attacked after the Torrent, but right there. You see, so it did damage here, obviously. It said 209 damage, but it also did damage to these 3 guys. And I also lined them up in such a way that you can sort of see the V shape. The V shape here is just not enough to hit this guy. And it's basically, this guy's almost on the edge here. There's obviously the river or pond, whatever you want to say. And so it's just this AoE, and also it's just not far enough to hit this guy. So I'll show you that again. Hits those 3, we'll refresh. We'll bring this guy in just a tad, and this guy in just a tad as well, and we'll show you it again, and now it hits all of them. So that's just to give you a slight demonstration of, you know, how far and the general cleave distance of the tidebringer. So this is what you can use to do a lot of damage, because it obviously does AoE damage, but the thing to consider is that it does physical damage that ignores armor. So if you don't know what armor is, it's basically one of the stats that just increases a hero's resistance to physical damage, or right-click damage, which is the most common type of physical damage. And so you can get armor items, those kinds of things, but the key to Tidebringer is in this cleave, it ignores all of that. Now, this person or this thing that it's hitting here when he's like clicking that armor is taken into consideration. So he actually does less damage to the initial target and more damage to the targets out here with Tidebringer. So that's basically how he can, you know, get Daedalus, get Rapier, those kinds of things, just one-shot really squishy supports and do a ton of damage when he gets a crit and he has a lot of damage. So that's what enables him to be that kind of hybrid hero. Now next, we're going to take a look at X marks the spot. And this is a pretty simple ability, but it has some other uses than what you would think. So you click on the hero, and it basically puts an X on the ground. And then after a short delay, it brings the person or the hero back to the X. It was kind of hard to see there, so we'll use it, you know, on this X. You know, there's an X on the ground, there's a little path back to the X, and then after the duration, he goes right back to where the X is. Now, what you can do with X marks the spot is you don't have to wait for the full duration. You can click X again, and it brings the enemy hero back to the X whenever you want that to happen. So we'll see how that's used later on with, you know, comboing his spells, but just a reminder and to know that you can do that. You can bring them back whenever you want. Now, that is how you use it offensively, but you can actually use it defensively in some ways where, you know, you're hiding in the trees, you click it on yourself, and then you can actually walk out and hit creeps or hit towers, you know, do damage, those kinds of things, while being safe, because you know you'll immediately go back to that X once the duration expires. And as you can see here, enemy delay 4, allied delay 8. So it actually is double on you and your allies. So you can do that to hide, go clear a creep wave with your Tidebringer, then, you know, retreat with the X, or you can actually use it on yourself or an ally, TP back to base, refill health and mana, you know, your bottle, those kinds of things, then bring yourself back, and now you're back into the fight, sort of like a remnant for Ember Spirit, those kinds of things. So it is something to consider that you can do that for yourself and for your teammates. Now, we'll move on to his ultimate, and that is Ghost Ship. So Ghost Ship, it's pretty simple, is that you click it here, and you see when I highlight it, there's an AoE that you can cast it in. It's a pretty decent AoE, and you can cast it any area. And when you do, it basically creates a giant pool with an X on it, and the ship comes in and hits all the heroes in that AoE and does damage and stuns them. So, I mean, that's pretty much it, but there's one thing that people don't know, or some newer players may not know, about Ghost Ship, and that's where the ship is coming through. If it touches any allied hero, that allied hero gets a buff where he takes less damage, and then the damage is applied later after the buff is like expiring. But you can't die from it. So it's essentially a thing that makes your entire team tankier for the duration of the fight, and then they take the damage later on, you know, while they're running away or while they escaped or while they're in base, but they can't actually die to that damage. So it's just one of those things that he obviously is stunning people, doing damage, but he's also making his team tankier in the fights. So those are Kunkka's abilities and how they work, but here's the real question. How do we get all of this to be effective and use this in a combo that really, you know, is good and doesn't make us just, you know, we like cast it, we cast this X, and then we're doing this, and then the guy runs away, and then we cast Bode, and he's still running away, and then we cast, and he's, you know, just none of the spells hit because he ran away from everything, and I didn't know what to do because I, you know, can't time everything perfectly because I'm new and I don't understand the timings, I don't have a feel for it yet, that kind of thing. So how do I do this? Well, what you need to do is, here, we'll level up the enemy to max, and we'll refresh. There's a few combos that I want to teach you of how to link everything together. So the first one is going to be X marks the spot, and so they might be running or whatever. Then you use Torrent on the area, And then in the cast time that it takes to cast Ghost Ship on that area, you click X again to bring them back to that spot so that they get hit by the torrent immediately. And then immediately after that stun is done, they are hit by the Ghost Ship. So instead of explaining it, I will just show it to you. But that's basically how you do it. So here, we'll start with Axe going around. Over here, we'll have Axe run. Do that, do that, do that. Bring him back. Boom. Boom. And that is the most basic combo. As you see, I mean, you may not know it, but pretty much what happened is, like I said, I cast the ability. We'll refresh here. We'll have Axe walk. I pressed X, I cast, then I immediately bring him back. And it just makes it so that you don't have to think about the timings. You don't have to think about the cooldowns or any. You basically have to know, okay, I have enough mana to cast these 3 spells. I'm going to do this. I don't care about the delays or how long it takes because this is going to be effective. Now, what you would notice is that there was a short time that he wasn't stunned before the torrent hit, and then after the torrent stun was applied, there was a short time before the Ghost Ship hit. But the key is that a hero like Axe, he may have Blink, but another, like a mobile hero, let's say, someone else that doesn't have a Blink ability or a Blink item, or someone that doesn't have, like, a mobility spell, like there's no Puck or Storm Spirit, those kinds of things. Someone that doesn't have innate mobility or built-in BKB, like Lifestealer or Jug. Any other hero, this combo will work on because they won't be able to do anything or cast BKB or anything like that in that short duration. They won't be able to walk out of the torrent range. They won't be able to walk out of the Ghost Ship range. Even though they have a split second to do something, they're pretty much screwed. They're pretty much just going to be stuck in that AoE and take all of that damage. And it kind of allows more time for you and your allied heroes to click them because it kind of extends the duration of those stuns. And so especially early on, before people get BKBs and a lot of items and those kinds of things, this combo will work. And I think it's the most basic combo that you can perform. Now, there's 2 problems with this combo, like sort of what I was alluding to before. One is that it allows people to pop BKB, and it allows people to, use mobility spells and those kinds of things because you're not chaining all the stuns perfectly. And the other thing that it does is it actually doesn't benefit from this move slow that the torrent gives. So I would say that this is probably a better combo to do, but it's a combo that sometimes you may screw up. Now, it just depends, but it's another way to do the combo. And that is, you press X, he runs away, you press boat, and then right before, I kind of messed it up there because I was talking and I accidentally had Axe selected because that happens sometimes. Here, I'll do this again. You have Axe, he's running. You press X, you press boat, and then right before you press the X to bring him back, right before the boat hits, you cast Torrent. So if you saw that, he was basically fully stunned there. So we'll do it again. He's walking. You cast this. You cast this. There we go. So you saw he was fully stunned in that duration. So basically you just want to cast, you press the X when he's running away, you cast Ghost Ship first, and then kind of like you have to time it right though, because you need to be able to cast Torrent before you press X, but with enough delay that you have time to press X before the Ghost Ship hits. So it's a little bit more difficult. You do have to know the timing, whereas the other one you don't really have to know any timing. But it does stun lock them, and it does use this move slow effectively because Torrent is the last thing that's applied, and then they will try to run away with this move slow, and then they will, obviously be slowed. So it's the most effective combo, but it does require a little bit of timing, as we see here. And obviously there's also another little bit of timing where you want to time it perfectly so that, you're casting Torrent, then you're pressing X right before the ship hits, so that there's really no time for them to pop BKB, or not pop BKB because they can pop BKB to run away from the X, but that they can, there's no time for them to use a mobility spell or anything like that in that short duration when they were brought back before the Ghost Ship hits. But you also don't want to kind of push that to the limit so much so that we can try it here. I'll try to screw it up so that the Ghost Ship or that the Torrent or the Ghost Ship doesn't hit Actually, I did it perfectly there, but it can get a little bit complicated because if you wait too long and you try to cast Torrent and then press X, well, you may not press X in time, and then you may just miss the stun completely on Ghost Ship. So it's just one of those things that it can be a little bit more complicated. You do have to learn the timing, but it is a better combo. There's just a little bit more skill involved. So if you're starting out, I would suggest trying to use this combo because there's really no timing involved. You pretty much just cast this, cast this, cast this, and then press X instantly, and it's pretty simple. And it does a lot of damage, and it's pretty effective. It's just that later on in the game, especially when you're advancing, when people get items, you may need to incorporate that other combo in your arsenal as well. Now, there could be other combos. There could be other things that you do that are effective, and I don't think that you should shy away from that if you have your own way of doing it, but I think those two types of combos are probably the best way to do it, the most efficient or the easiest to learn. Now, obviously, if you don't have Ghost Ship, you're just going to have to be able to learn the combo of, using X and Torrent together. There's not really a trick to that. It's just something you have to learn because there's no way to, just know the cast times. Just know that it's probably better to bring him back a little bit early. Just know that, it's just better to bring him back early than late because obviously when you want to time it, but if you bring him back too late, you're just going to miss it completely and it's going to feel pretty bad. So I would say he's walking, you press X, you wait just a little bit, and then you press, it's just like a tiny bit. It doesn't really have to be that long before you press X back. It's just getting a feel for it. You press it, you just wait a little bit, and then you bring him back. See there, that was really close. But it's not as long as people think because the cast time is pretty decent. So press X, press Torrent, wait for a split second, bring him back. It's always better to try to be a little bit early than late, and that's kind of the advice I would give you on that. So that is Kunkka's abilities. I hope that helps you understand how to chain them together effectively, and now we'll go into a replay and see how to play him in-game. So now we're going to jump into a replay here of Attacker playing Kunkka. And I think this laning stage is a pretty good example of how to play Kunkka. He's a pretty good Kunkka, obviously high-level Kunkka. So he pretty much knows what he's doing. Now, he opts to go for the Torrent first here. And that's because he wants to... he was helping out at the rune. We didn't see it. It's not a big deal. But he can use this ability to kind of secure last hits and those kinds of things because he knows he's against a melee. And they're going to have to walk up to the creep to get that last hit. So he can use that. And if he times it correctly, as we saw there briefly with the range creep, if he times it correctly, he can mess up their last hits. But which one you take first, whether it's Thorn or Tidebringer, not the biggest of deal. But this is what I want to show you, or I want you to take notice of, is how early he goes and hits this small camp. It's like what was it, 2 waves they hit, and he pushed one under the tower. So now he knows that tower is going to push his wave in, so he's not going to miss creeps, so he can go and hit that small camp early. And we see he has basically the same amount of last hits as the enemy mid, but the enemy mid cleared one more creep wave than he did. So he has this entire creep wave that he can clear and get those last hits and basically be even with the, or ahead of the, what is it? Void Spirit here. And you also see him use, because, runes and bottle are so good, you see him use his combo to force out spells even early on. Once he's level 3, he uses his combo to make the enemy hero, Void Spirit, use his spells to interrupt the combo and not take a ton of damage, rather than using his spells offensively. And so it's really, really good that Attacker's doing that here with his Kunkka. He's using his spells to make the enemy waste mana, waste time, all that kind of thing, so that, because basically if he doesn't do what he just did there, he could easily die because of the amount of damage that Kunkka will do to him early on. So those are two of the big things that I wanted to emphasize early on, is just that you need to, you don't just want to sit at full mana because, you're not using your spells because, Tidebringer here doesn't cost that much mana. You want to be using them effectively in the beginning of the game to kind of annoy your opponent in the mid lane. And then also, if you can, whenever you have the opportunity, taking those small camps or those jungle camps is an extremely important part of Kunkka, because he can clear them so quickly with Tidebringer, especially once he gets higher levels. Now, what you'll probably notice is that he has not been using his Tidebringer off cooldown. And that's because, especially once you get higher levels in Tidebringer, you'll be doing enough damage to get the range creep so low that the enemy team will easily be able to deny it, and you don't want that to happen. I see a lot of Kunkas that are new to Kunkka just, using their tidebringer off cooldown, and they get the range creep to below half health, and the enemy just denies it. You don't want that to happen. So you see, he'll come up here. He won't instantly use the tidebringer on the creeps unless he angles it in such a way, as we just saw there, to not hit the range creep. So he is trying to use the tidebringer to harass the enemy, but he's being careful enough to not hit the range creep. Now, this next thing that you'll see here is that once he gets enough points, 3 points in the tidebringer and 1 point in torrent, he's going to be able to clear these range creeps pretty effectively, but you saw that the enemy mid fortified to stop him from doing that. So do know that, at least as it stands now, once you get to this point, you will be able to cast your torrent on the range creep and then use your cleave to clear the range creep so that it's not denied. You see right there, he did enough damage to get it low, but then it was easily denied because of his level 3 tidebringer. So if he would have cast his torrent on that, then he would have been able to secure it, but he kind of did that knowing that it was going to get denied, but he was saying it was worth it because now he cleared this camp here. So we see he gets 6, and he immediately, he sees that there's a support there. He says, I don't know if I can kill them. We also saw that he cleared another small camp, so he's cleared, 3 already? But he immediately hits 6, and he says, you know what, I'm just going to see if I can try to get a kill or do something, really annoy the enemy. He gets the enemy low, and then he says, okay, well, you're going to walk up here. You're kind of half health. You're not level 6 yet. I'm going to use my combo on you and see if I can kill you. Now, he doesn't kill the Void Spirit, but he does do enough damage that the Void Spirit is extremely low, can't really lane very well, has to be scared of getting more Tidebringer cleaves. Like, he's low still, very low health. So he comes back in here, does another stun, gets the Void Spirit extremely low again, and it's just, he's being extremely effective with all of his casting of his abilities. You see there, he goes again to hit the range creep to Tidebringer in this direction to see, okay, if the Void Spirit's over here with such low health, if he's just standing there, maybe I just get a free kill. So even though he wasn't able to kill the Void Spirit, he was able to do a lot of damage and really annoy the Void Spirit with his ultimate as soon as he got 6. So, now that he was able to do that, now he's just kind of playing the passive farm game. His ult is on cooldown. He doesn't have much else to do than farm, so he goes into the jungle to clear camps. But this is the next thing that I want to show you. He just does one after another of good things. Is that we'll rewind here and pause for a second to show you what he does. So you know that there's a slight delay with Torrent, and then it pushes the enemy and the creeps that it hits up into the air. Now, the hitbox on these neutral camps, if you don't know, there's a hitbox that you can stack. If you attack the creep and pull the creeps out of the hitbox at the minute mark when they spawn, it'll spawn a second or even third. If you keep doing it consecutively, it'll spawn more creeps, and then the other creeps will go back there. So it's essentially stacking the camp. You can actually use Torrent here to stack a camp if you cast it at the perfect time so that the creeps are in the air when they go up, and so they're technically not in the spawn box when the creeps spawn. So we can see that he uses it here right at the perfect time, and the creeps go into the air, and then it spawns new creeps. It's like you can use that to stack camps for yourself that you're going to clear later, or maybe other people will clear. It's just one of those little tricks that it's going to be hard to maybe do it in game, so I would suggest, opening a practice lobby or some kind of, game against bots or whatever, and trying to get the timing down, because obviously there's a 1.6 second delay, so you should cast it like 1.8 seconds or something like that before the minute mark goes over. So it's just something you have to get used to with the timing based on the clock there, but it is a way that you can stack creep camps to clear later. So we see that he was kind of farming, basically, when he didn't have his ult and his ghost ship available. But now that he has it available, it just got off cooldown, he's off map, and he's looking to rotate to a lane where he knows that he can get kills. So the Morph may be kind of a hard hero to kill, so he says, I'm not going to go to that lane. So he goes bot here, and he immediately uses his combo to get a kill on the enemy offlaner. We see him use the combo. We see him use the more advanced combo that I was talking about, the one that's not as easy. But I would say, especially if you're starting out, just use the combo that I said that you're definitely not going to miss, the easy one. Obviously, practice beforehand. Don't practice it in the game. Make sure you know how to do it. But get those combos down, and then use that, and he immediately secures kills on the enemy. And that's pretty much how you play Kunkka's laning stage. I know there was a lot to take in there, but there's a lot of different like nuanced things to play, or how to play Kunkka. Like even here with that creep camp, the way that he was able to use tidebringer to clear both creep camps at the same time. He used his abilities effectively to secure the last hits, harass the enemy. He stacked the camps. He took the creep camps when he was able to. He rotated whenever he had his ult off cooldown. All of those kinds of things are just things to keep in mind when you're playing Kunkka, and to make sure that you're doing effectively, because that's how you can get a lot of net worth on Kunkka. You see, look at his last hits. He is absolutely annihilating this game right now, because he's just, I mean, he is such a good Kunkka. He knows all the little tricks and how to do, how to get farm and play this hero effectively. So you could even watch this replay if you wanted, or watch other attacker replays. You can watch my advice back here, or watch this again if you wanted to just see all the little things that he does in the laning stage. But yeah, that's the laning stage on Kunkka. That's how you perform the combos, and that's how you can essentially get as much farm and be so dominant on this hero like attacker is. So we jumped ahead a little bit here, and he's pretty much just been farming, staying off map, using his abilities on cooldown. And this is just a good example of how effective he can be at ganking. We see he sees the support trying to get some levels, and he just uses X on the disruptor here, and he doesn't even need to use the torrent. He just kind of cleaves one time off of a creep and does so much damage. And obviously the Doom is there too. He probably would have used torrent if the Doom wasn't there, but you just see there's almost nothing the disruptor can do, especially being level 5, that if anyone is out of position like that, Kunkka can just walk up to them, use his abilities, and there's pretty much nothing that he can do. And that's just a good example. Obviously, it's early in the game. The disruptor is not 6 yet, so it's not like he could do anything. But it's just a good example in general of heroes like that don't have innate mobility, or don't have any items like BKB or those kinds of things, that you can pretty much just walk up, and if you get that X on them, it's going to be very, very hard for a lot of heroes to live, especially early to mid-game. So that's just a good example of how you want to be looking for pickoffs while you're staying off map and farming jungle with Kunkka in the mid-game. So next we're going to look at a little bit later in the game, and Kunkka is generally using his abilities on cooldown, but they look to take a team fight here, and I just want to show you a small detail. Obviously, he uses his ability, he uses his combo effectively there, but look at where he positions himself. He knows there's creeps here, he stays on the back of the fight, and then he uses his tidebringer on these creeps to get damage into the fight over here. And that's something with Kunkka that you need to pay attention to. It's unlike any other hero where you have to position yourself in such a way around the enemy creep waves or neutral creeps in the jungle so that you can get the tidebringer to do a ton of damage to the enemy. It's just one of those things that you're going to have to play the hero more. You're going to have to get used to playing the hero to get that positioning, but it's just different than any other hero in the game, where what you want to do is put yourself in these weird positions where you're cleaving off of creeps or enemy heroes to get more damage onto other enemy heroes. And so, like I said, it's just unlike any other hero in the game, just something you're going to have to either watch replays of attacker or just get used to doing, but it's just something to consider, and that fight right there was the perfect example. They would not have secured that kill onto Void Spirit if it wasn't for him doing that. If he just ran in like a crazy person or something like that, he didn't get that cleave damage, I don't think he would have killed the Void Spirit. And it's just also one of those things that you can get a lot of damage in from out of vision, and it might just surprise the enemy because they don't even know where you are, but you're just, critting them down for a ton of damage. You're doing a ton of damage to them, especially if you go like a damage build. I mean, even this armlet build is pretty good right now because it makes him tanky but does a good amount of damage. So that's pretty much how you want to be playing Kunkka here. We see him go in again, cast a bunch of spells. We don't see him cleave off of creeps. It's not always available. Sometimes you just need to walk up, walk in, and do damage. So it's not something that you need to like be running around the fight, always constantly looking for creeps. But if there is that time that you can cleave off of creeps, you want to be doing that. And so that, my friends, is my Kunkka guide. As always, guys, I hope this was informative for you and helps you play better in the future. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them in the comments below. If you want me to take a look at one of your replays, then just let me know. Give me the replay number below, and I'd be happy to take a look at your game and give you some advice, regardless of the hero or the position. So, as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.